Okay, this is going to be a video on the experiments that I've been doing this year. You know, gardening is basically one big experiment after another for a lot of us. I mean, it could be as simple as just trying a new variety of tomato or what have you. So anyhow, my first experiment we're going to discuss was over the winter. Last fall I'd gotten some peaches from a friend of mine, and I had inquired about growing trees from those seeds. And he said, heck, they come up all the time at his place, you know, in the garden where he works the fruit that he can't use into the garden, or the compost that'll come up there. So I tried two ways. One is I put the whole seed into the ground in one area, and then in another area I removed the center part out of the seed to see if that would work any better. Well, come this spring, in the first area where I had the whole seed, the outer crust and everything, I had two come up, and I was real excited. I got me two peach trees that I'll be able to plant somewhere. So I dug them up and I put them in a pot so that I could move them to wherever I wanted. I was just going to let them grow a little bit in the pot though, so that, you know, they would make sure they were in good health before I transplanted them someplace else. Well, after a little bit, here, I got to looking closely and I realized what I had was not peach trees. So I got me one of those programs that help you identify it. It couldn't identify it. You know, it has this almost heart shape. They call it octave or something, shaped leaf. But anyhow, I got to remembering then that, wait a minute, in that spot last year, I tried to grow some Blue Lake pole beans. Yeah, guess what? This is my peach tree. Yeah, right. And so that was pretty much 100% fail on the peach seed, but I got a real nice green bean plant out of it. One of these days I'll get it planted in the ground. So that's number one experiment. Number two experiment, we'll take a walk over here and take a look at this. I didn't have enough tomato cages and stuff for the tomatoes. I used the fence and what have you. So I built one out of sticks that were off of, I have a lot of these Chinese elm here, worthless damn trees, and I had cut them back last year. And so using the sticks and jute, I built this. And the one thing that I had to do was I found I had to attach it to the wood frame for the raised bed to give it enough strength. And I only put one screw in each leg, but it's actually been holding up pretty good, and it's holding the tomatoes up. I have had one or two of the sticks come out, but I just stick them back into jute, and they seem to be working pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with this experiment. And then that's number two. Number three experiment. Well, it ain't really, well, I have my black plastic here. This is the first time I've used this amount of black plastic. I have used the cheap Walmart plastic, but this was the good stuff that we bought online. And I'm very pleased with it. I do have grass growing up in the edges and what have you, but that's to be expected. But these beds were getting overrun with grass, and look at, man, they've just choked off the grass. And then I had to put rocks here and there to hold it down and what have you. I pull grass where the plants are coming up here and there, but that's been working really good. And so that was number three. Okay. Number four experiment concerned these plants, which are gooseberries. I took cuttings and I put them in a pot in the house in the early spring, and they did turn green, like they were putting out leaves and what have you. And so I put them out here and put them in the ground, and this is what I get. Within 2 weeks they were completely no green left on them. You know, both of them did the exact same thing. So I did something wrong. I mean, when they both do it, obviously I did something wrong. So that was a fail. But I'll be looking that up and learning how to do that, and I'll be trying again next year. Well, I'll do it also with other type of brambles. I grow gooseberries and other berries that I would like to be able to get more plants off of. So that was number 4. That probably helps. Okay, so let's look at another one of my experiments. It's not growing flowers in a pot. It's the idea of how big the pot is. And I have, you can see over here, I have another big pot here that I've got some multiplier onions growing. And I've got some big pot over here that I've got celery growing. I got another one down there, and I got 2 big pots over there. I'm growing lettuce and cilantro. And what my experiment was is I'm looking at these pottery pots, ceramic pot, whatever this, clay pots I guess they are, and I'm a little concerned about half filling it full of rocks, because you can see I have quite a few rocks that I could be filling half the bottom up with, as you do, so that you don't have to use all that potting soil. So I started thinking, well, what else do I have a lot of that I could fill all these pots up with that wouldn't be heavy? If I have to move them and they're full of rocks, that's going to be a little difficult. So I got to looking, and then I realized one thing I have a lot of is pine cones. And I don't know if you can see so much of it here in the shadows, but over here in the sunlight, yeah. This is my pine tree. One of them, I got 2, and you can, this thing here's still full of pine cones, and I got them all over. So I did a little research to see if there was anything on Google about using pine cones in the bottom of them. Of course, I realized today that the word research is now retro. I mean, Google is the new word for research, isn't it? Anyhow, so I Googled it, and there were some people saying, oh, you know, a pine tree might grow or something. I'm like, you know what? I'm willing to take the chance. So I filled it half full of pine cones. I put in dirt, and then I took water and soaked it so that it would settle down. And then I put some more dirt in there up to the level. Now, when I do them in future, all of my pots have the same thing. They're really low down here. And so what I'll do in the future is I will fill them completely to the top. They settled. This was filled to about here. So that shows you how much it's settled. So what I will probably do is fill them completely full a couple of days before I actually want to plant, but over a period of time they will settle down 2-3 inches, so that, which would be perfect on the top. Now I have like 4 or 5 inches. So that was an experiment that so far I've not had a pine tree grow up in one of my pots or anything. Everything is growing, so it's not adversely affecting it. It's not poisonous or anything to my plants, apparently. So I would call that a win. So that's one good experiment there. So another one of my experiments here was onions. I had onions that were sprouting. I store them in the garage over the winter, and they were sprouting by spring. So I thought, well, let's just put them in. Now, I did do a video where the wife would actually cut off about half of the onion. She would block it off, you know, cut off each side of the center stem, and then we would plant that center stem, and the parts she cuts off we would use for canning or what have you, whatever purposes we needed onions for. So you can see what's happened is, oddly enough, they kind of become like multipliers. Now, first off, I must say these here, this is where I cut the scapes off. We've harvested probably 6 pounds of scapes. They've been dried. They'll be used in soups and stuff. Well, all of these that we did that to are like multipliers. They have a bunch of different smaller onions, but it's still early in the season. But this one here has been quite an interesting experiment. I call it successful because of the scape that we've been able to use, and we do enjoy those in our soups and stuff. So I would say that was a good experiment, and yes, we will do that again. Let's go take a look at another one. Most of you would know would be my Oyas, And as you can see, they have been quite successful. These plants here are twice as big as the same things that I started here moved. These are on their own now. The only water they get is rainwater, which we get very little, or from the Oyas. And I just put water in here, and I put these covers on to help keep them from dehydrating from the sun. And you can see this one here. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's about an inch low. I'll be watering those this evening. But these plants are pretty much getting theirs from the Oya now too. So that was my biggest success so far of the year in all of my experiments. I have a few other here and there, but I can't seem to think of them right now. So let's see what other experiments you all are doing. I really enjoy that part of gardening, is trying new things and trying to make different things work. Without experimentation, you know, we wouldn't have the no-till gardens, we wouldn't have the roof style, we wouldn't have any of that. So I'd like to see what other people have for what experiments they're doing this year. And we'll catch you on our next video. Have a good one.